All right, welcome back to episode 3. In this episode, I'm going to discuss how I process my guitar, my voice, the clips themselves, and also show you my routing with buses inside Loopy Pro. Let's get to it. Okay, so I'm going to start with how I process my vocals because it's pretty simple. And I'm going to open up my mixer again, and you'll see that I actually have them all turned off right now because of the narration with the video, but I'm going to go through them. This is not my performing mic, so some of these EQ features and compression features will be off slightly because I have it EQ'd and compressed for a different mic. When I open up my compressor here, I'm going to turn it on. Okay, you can immediately hear that. So what it's doing is I'm looking for some slight gain reduction when I'm hitting that high threshold. So sometimes when I go out to perform, I'll just adjust this threshold right here until it's giving me that slight gain reduction that I need for those peaks. I'm going to turn it off now. And then I also will use an EQ. So the EQ here, you can see it's boosted slightly around that 217. Well, exactly 217, but it's really around 250 is where I shoot for that fundamental frequency of my voice. Going through it, I like to boost that just a tiny bit. I also will cut out any harsh frequencies, and this is usually depending on the PA system and also the arena, yeah, right, I'm not selling out arenas, or the place that I'm playing at. The venue is the word I was looking for. So I will find that. I will, I'll perform a song, I'll do a sound check, and if I hear something like rumbling or cutting, or that's where I'll make my cut. Okay, and then sometimes I'll just boost the highs a little bit. I have to be careful here. This is where you get that feedback. So it's usually a slight boost. Again, I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so those are the basic things on how I process my vocals, but I also have some pretty cool effects. So one of the effects that I like to use is Tornado, and that's this little orange circle here. So when I tap on the orange circle, I get this megaphone distortion type sound. You can hear this sound on Where It's At. You can also hear it on other songs that I do. I really like that sound. I don't know, it's like a classic 90s kind of sound that in, let's say, Butthole Surfer's Pepper. That's another great song that has that megaphone type effect in it. And so I wanted to have that in my live sound as well. So I also have some other things here with as far as effects, but I'm going to hold off on those because some of those are actually bus effects, or they deal with my special multi-effect hack that I'm going to show later in this. But the final thing I want to go through with my mic is these two buttons, beatbox and harmony. I kind of alluded to them in the routing video, but I didn't demonstrate how they work. So I'm going to open up my mixer, but I'm going to minimize it so you can see how it's actually working. When I tap on beatbox, you'll notice now the beatbox is active, and you'll see down at the bottom, that one, my main mic, A, is now muted, and the beatbox is there. This gives me the ability to record in my green area. So you can see now I'm in the green area. So you can see now I'm in the green. Okay, let's clear that. Okay, but if I'm not in there and I go to here, you can notice that there's nothing. Okay, that's important. Now, let's tap out of beatbox. Now it's not going through. All right, so you can also hear that I have some heavier compression on that, and I have an EQ because I'm beatboxing. I want really heavy, tight compression. I'm beatboxing pretty poorly, so I have to enhance it as best as I possibly can. And to do that, I use a compressor and an EQ. Now with my harmony one, again, I'm going to tap on samples, and you'll notice that nothing's coming through. Okay, so now if I tap on harmony and go to samples, now it's going through because I have my harmony channel activated. And the harmony channel, as you saw in the last video, is going directly into the yellow. And go to samples, now it's going through because, okay, I'm gonna tap out of that. So if we look at how that's working, I'm gonna go to my edit feature, and I have it set so that it's a 1-2, meaning the first time I press it, it's going to unmute the beatbox, mute A and harmony, which is B. And then the second time I press it, it's going to unmute my main mic and mute the beatbox and harmony. The harmony works the same way, except I'm unmuting the harmony and muting the other two, and then unmuting my main mic and muting harmony and beatbox. So I found that this is the best way that worked for me. I'm sure there's a simpler way, but the toggle did not really function the same way, and it started getting really messy. And I wanted to be able to see that the first action here is highlighted. In other words, when I'm in harmony mode, I can clearly see that. When I'm in beatbox mode, I can clearly see that, and you can really hear the difference. So that is how I'm using my microphone with some different effects and how I'm processing it. But let's get into the guitar. All right, let's start with my always on effects. So just like my vocals, I start with a compressor and an EQ. Let's look at the compressor. You can see it's very, very basic. I have a ratio of 6. That might be a little too much, but I like what it's giving me. So I'm doing this all just by kind of ear and looking visually and seeing what it's doing. So you see right now, it's not doing anything. So I can bring down that threshold a little bit. Okay. Now I do a lot of reggae, so I'm looking at that gain reduction. And when I do those chops, I want it to be working so it evens things out and it's not like too ear piercing. Yeah, it's just doing some slight stuff there and it sounds nice. And then let's look at the EQ. I do a high pass, and that high pass is what, around 50, 60, okay? So I can adjust that sometimes. If I'm doing a solo acoustic song without it looping, I might turn the EQ off, but generally speaking, it just brightens up everything and makes it sound nice. Now let's look at the effects. So the very first thing I have here is a chorus effect. You're gonna see, 4 of them across there. And sometimes I just tweak these slightly, but they stay pretty much in the same preset. I almost treat them as if I had a small pedal board. And I did for years. So I was dragging out, I'm a big electro harmonics fan, so I was dragging out this pedal board of all these different pedals in addition to my MIDI controllers and all of that. And as you saw in the first video, I wanted to simplify. And one of the easiest ways to simplify was to do everything inside the box. So here's my clean sound again. All right, so let's check out that chorus sound. Okay, so these are all Bleece effects. So that's Bleece chorus. Love Bleece. It's very low on the resources. You can see my iPad is idling at about 5%. When I turn this on, 6-7%. Not much there at all. All right, so let's check out the phaser, which is the Bleece phaser. Really nice, really nice. So all I did was find the preset I liked from Bleece, and then I just made some small tweaks. We have the tremolo. Really nice. That one's actually called Bleece Dragonfly. Okay, so it's not called tremolo. I don't know. I don't know why, but that one's Bleece Dragonfly. And then we have the filter, which is my favorite. I use this. I probably overuse it, but I love it. It's got that envelope filter. My all-time favorite pedal is the Qtron by Electro Harmonics. So I wanted something that was close to that. I contemplated bringing that thing out because I love it so much, but this gave me enough. So I have that. Yeah, really cool. And you could do some funky stuff too, like a... I think it sounds really great. So I was happy with that. I'm like, okay, I don't need to bring out that other pedal board. So I have my 4 main staples. But one of the benefits of doing what I used to do was build song templates, is I had like specific songs that had like very cool effects that I wanted to bring in on my guitar. And I really didn't want to just be switching presets. I like having those 4 just the way they are. I use those a lot. So what I did is I created this final button here, which looks like dice. Now, in the top right corner, you're going to see something that says overdrive right now. So when I tap on the dice, you'll see the dice match. Tap on that, I've got this overdrive. Yeah, so you're going to hear some like ping pong delays there too, some trails, as well as a slapback delay. This is my lead channel. If I want to do really cool. So I have that ability to throw that in, and if I want to adjust my overdrive live, I can just lean over. All right, so this is on a bus. I'm going to show you that in a little bit. I'm going to turn that off, and now I'm going to skip spacey for now. I'm going to go to shimmer. So you're going to see when I tap on my dice now, you're going to see the shimmer dial. And you guessed it, this is Bleece Shimmer. Beautiful. It saved me about, I don't know, $400 or $500 from buying a Strymon. I just love this. So relaxing. And it actually should be a little bit more in the background, but I wanted you guys to really hear what it does. Okay, and then the final one, I have a flanger. The flanger I don't use often. Every once in a while, I like throwing it in there. So now I have this flanger. All right, so I think that's all of the classic effects that I use just guitar. Let me turn off that. Okay, so you have an idea of how I process this guitar live, some of the different effects that are always there, and then the other ones that that I sometimes will use and throw in here and there. I usually keep this on overdrive for the majority of the time, unless I'm doing something that requires one of those other 3 or 4 effects. Okay, so I have just a few ways that I process the clips. I try to keep this clean for a couple reasons, but the main reason is when I put something into the loop, I don't want it to drastically change so it sounds funny. Like the beat all of a sudden gets really loud. When recording, it was at a certain volume, and then when it gets into the beat color, the clip, it gets really loud. That's not good. You want it to be like even volume, so I don't want it to be drastic, but I want it to, if it improves the sonic quality of it and it gets rid of some things, that's a good thing. So I do process my beat. Let me solo out the beat here so you can hear it. This is 2 a.m. Okay, and so what I'm using here is just this FAC transient. Here's without. Here's with. Okay, so you can see that it just adds some punch to it. I like that. It's subtle in the mix, though. It really cuts through and adds that punch. The next thing, I have this bass track. So I have a compressor and an EQ. You can see the combo again. So right now, this compressor's not doing anything. You can see here, I got to drag this down. Getting some slight gain reduction. There we go. And let's put that EQ back on. So what I'm doing here is I'm boosting the fundamental frequency around 80 hertz. 80 to 100 is that sweet spot for most of the stuff that I play. Again, it depends on the notes, but it works well. So let me mute that for a second. And then the other thing I'm doing is I'm cutting out the boxiness. I find the boxiness is usually around 300, 350. It can go as low as 250 as well. I just want to cut some of that out. Let's listen. You hear so I'm going to cut that out, and then I roll off the top a little bit. So just get rid of some of that acoustic pickiness. And so those are the only two things that I really process as far as the clips go with automatic effects. So I also have this lo-fi button for drums. Now it's yellow because my foot switch below is actually yellow on the foot switch. So I want to make sure that it just remind myself that that's the lo-fi button. But let's hear what it does. So what it's doing is it's turning on this EQ where I have everything pretty much cut by 12 dBs except for 1K and 4K in hopes to give me that kind of like radio-ish sound. So there it is, engaged, normal, engaged, normal. So I'll often use that when I cut like the bass and some other loops and I'm just jamming along just with my acoustic. But I still want that beat in there, and I want the chorus to feel huge when it comes back in or whatever when I bring in all the other loops. I'll turn that on, and so you'll still hear the beat, but you won't feel it quite as much. Okay, so now let's look at the bus situation. I have 6 buses on here. The first bus is my tape delay. So the tape delay, I'll show it to you on the guitar, but I use it on drums, I use it on my rhythm track, I use it on guitar, and I use it on vocals. So this is it on guitar. So this is Kymatica, one of my favorite app developers. I've been using this Kymatica dub for like 10 plus years. I used it when I had to use Audio Bus to route it in there. It's like non-existent as far as resources go. So when you use this thing, you are not adding any kind of trouble to your iPad, which I love. And it's just so high quality. I mean, I can use it on my voice. So that is the tape delay that I use for pretty much everything. Then I also have some spring. Now the spring I really don't use too often on live instruments, meaning the guitar. I have it available here. But what I really like using it on is something like a recorded track. So here we go. Let's play this. And here's that tape delay on that. Okay, so you can see that spring sound, again, another Kymatica effect. You can see here, I just have Kymatica space, and it's just a spring preset that I just tweaked. I wanted to take some of that mud out or the low end out to not interfere with drums or bass or anything like that. The third one I have here is the room. The room is always on slightly on my guitar and my voice. All right, so it's slightly on there. It just adds some space, and I like that, some width, I should say. And on the guitar, you can really hear it when I chop. Okay, so now if I mute that, just some nice width. So I really like that one. That one pretty much stays always on. I have slap here. So slap is what I would use on my vocals, and right here I can turn this up. Okay, so I have this set. This is not something that I have tempo engaged. I don't want to sync it. It's roughly, I think, 100 milliseconds. Roughly 100 milliseconds there. I found that to be kind of the sweet spot for me. I know it's stylistically, it's whatever you want. I think they said the Beatles, Elvis was like 160. That was just way too much, and you heard it way too much. So I didn't like that. So I wanted it to be subtle. Obviously, that's not subtle, but I'll throw it in the background. And it just adds another dimension to the voice. Okay. Then, as I said earlier, I have this overdrive. So my overdrive is actually on a bus. And the reason I do that is because I want the natural acoustic sound to also be there. So it's blending the two. All right, so you can see, you can really hear that, but I didn't want it to just be an overdriven sound. I wanted my acoustic to shine through as well and not miss out on that. Overdriven acoustic is tough, but I feel like this blend really helps and it gets rid of that like trying to be electric sound. Also, the Tone X is just awesome. It has cab emulation on it, so the IRs in it make it sound like less twangy, and it make it sound like a real amp, like I'm plugging this thing into my Fender. So really awesome, love that. And then the final thing is I have this vocal trails. So vocal trails again is my dub, so Kymatica dub, and this one is tempo engaged, so you can see when I go into this, I have it set to ping pong. I love having my bus effects as stereo effects. It adds a lot. I don't run stereo often, but I do whenever I get the opportunity to. So I do have a low cut around 450 and a high cut around 1500. It's tempo synced, so that would be the dotted eighth notes, which is a classic reggae rhythm, and it will ping pong back and forth, but I also have it set to go through some reverb as well. So let's hear what that sounds like. I'm going to use this. Hello. Okay, so you can hear that ping-ponging back and forth. And I can adjust the send here from my vocals. It sounds a little bit heavy right now, but that's just because nothing else is going on. So that is how I set up my buses. You can see when I go into my mixer, all these buses down here. We have 4 different buses for voice. We have 4 different buses for our guitar, and then we have some different buses for, we have the tape and the spring for the beat, my rhythm, lead, and even samples. So I'm able to pull those in whenever I want. I also have that room on rhythm and lead because it sounds really funny if I'm recording my guitar which has that space, that reverb, that room reverb on it, and then it gets recorded into a loop without it. All of a sudden, it sounds really, really dry and like something's missing. And then also, you can see here in the middle of the screen, I have yellow, orange, blue spring and tape sliders here. They actually control the sends. And you'll see that because I'm going to play a song at the end. You're going to see that the springs and the tape, you're going to see them go up and down. Now I'm going to be using my foot controller, which I'm going to show you guys on the final episode and how that works. But that's why you'll see the actions actually go up. Okay, so that is how I use sends. I hope this made sense. Let me show you a quick demo. world on fire. It was me who set the world on fire.